good? Are we in focus? I think we are. Yes. Hello! Now, I have no idea how to start this because I'm not very good at introducing things that I've never done before, so I'm just gonna start talking. We are now about a week officially into 2018. God, that sounds so weird still to say that we're in 2018. Luckily, I haven't had to say it too many times yet. I haven't been back to work yet, but I am trying to stick back into my reflection of 2017, and one of the things that I have been doing is thinking about all of the movies that I saw. And I've never really done like a movie, not review, but like a movies that I've seen or things that I've done kind of thing before, and I thought that might be kind of fun because maybe you know, maybe you don't. I like to see a lot of movies. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna basically let you know what films I saw this year. While I'm talking, you can watch the list scroll by. And I've done a top 10 list, but top 10 not in any particular order, just the top 10 of the movies that I saw that I liked the best. You will notice that my list is quite sparse. It's actually pretty funny that this is the year that I'm deciding to do this because it is probably the year that I've seen the least films as they've come out. I haven't seen Star Wars, I haven't seen the Thor films, I haven't seen Mother, Lego Batman, Dunkirk, Shape of Water yet. A whole bunch of these films, Murder on the Orient Express, that got just so much attention, and so before you ask me about it, no, I have not seen those films. But I have picked out 10 of my favorites of the films that I saw this year that came out this year, or were at least in movie theaters, and just some thoughts on them and why I think that you should check these films out yourself. Now, I'm very bad at ordering my preferences for things, so rather than trying to do that and torture myself, I've decided that I'm going to talk about each of these films in the order that I saw them during the year. So that just solves everything, doesn't it? Now, before I get into my opinions of the films, I think I'm gonna, with each of them, give you a little synopsis. Thank you IMDb for these synopses, and I will not be telling you any spoilers as best as I possibly can, so spoiler free, just suggestions of movies that you might not have seen that I think you will. And I feel like many of you haven't seen a lot of these films because I watch obscure things. Thank you, Toronto International Film Festival Lightbox. Okay, so here we go. First film of the year that I saw was called I, Daniel Blake. I'll put a lovely thing for you here. It is a UK film with the storyline as follows. A 59-year-old carpenter recovering from a heart attack befriends a single mother and her 2 kids as they navigate their way through the impersonal, Kafkaesque benefit system. With equal amounts humor, warmth, and despair, the journey is heartfelt and emotional until the end. That description aside, I have to say that this film was a very tough one to start off the year with. Not because it was a bad film, obviously it is on my top 10 favorites list for this year, but because the subject matter in this is just so raw. Just as the synopsis says, it follows a older gentleman and a woman that he meets, single mother with her 2 kids, and basically it's just a story of really backwards judicial systems and just fighting the man, I guess, so to speak. Both of the characters in this story are faced with a lot of really shitty hands, basically, and for Daniel Blake, it's his struggles after he's had to go on medical leave, trying to fight back and get his own benefits while he's not able to work, but the loopholes that he has to go through that make no sense, and how the disconnect in all of these working cogs don't always fit, and how that can have detrimental effects on individuals. I loved this film so much, but it made me cry like a fountain, I'm not gonna lie, and it was beautifully shot, it was beautifully cut together, the performances are incredible. I don't know any of the actors who were in this film, but my god, if I saw them in anything else, I'd be very, very excited because they had such beautiful, raw, real performances. And not only that, but they made the relationships between the characters so real and so touching, and you really felt for them through and through, and just, it was a beautiful portrayal of something that happens to people every day all around the world. People who are facing problems in their lives and are not able to get the help that they need to stay on their feet because of it, so despite those problems. So I, Daniel Blake, definitely check it out. Oh boy. This one. Okay, so next on my list is Beauty and the Beast. You all know the story, but I will read it to you anyways. Disney's animated classic takes on a new form with a widened mythology and an all-star cast. A young prince imprisoned in the form of a beast can be freed only by true love. What may be his only opportunity arrives when he meets Belle, the only human girl to ever visit the castle since it was enchanted. Now, you may not know this about me, but I love Disney. And although Beauty and the Beast probably wasn't one of my favorite Disney films growing up, I tended to favor more of the animal-focused ones, Lion King, 101 Dalmatians, Robin Hood, etc. Beauty and the Beast, I think, seeing this film made me remember just how much I adored this storyline, but not just how much I adored the story when it came out, and originally in 1991, but this particular production of Beauty and the Beast brought back the best parts of the old version, the original animated version in 1991, but it updated it in such a way that it removed, I think, all of the problems and just made it such a great story for kids now to be able to sink their teeth in, enjoy because it's fun, but also learn from in a very positive and forward-thinking way. It's really funny, after I saw this film, I came home and tried to record a video about it, and I never actually edited and uploaded it because maybe I was just too excited, but I had something like 10 different points about why the film was amazing. And if you're interested, and probably because I think it will be fun now that I'm doing this, I'll probably sit down, upload it in a little while, just for shits and gigs, because why not? But I loved this film. The casting was great and gives each of the characters kind of their own time to shine. Long story short, if you like stories that are fun, that have a good message, that have great music, incredible costume and set design, and just is overall executed very well, I think that you will like Beauty and the Beast. I know a lot of people had problems with it, but maybe I will save my dissections for this film until I actually edit the other video. Alright, let's just move on, because gosh. Baby Driver by Edgar Wright. Now, because I think the larger synopsis has too much information, I'm gonna give you the one sentence. After being coerced into working for a crime boss, a young getaway driver finds himself taking part in a heist doomed to fail. So Edgar Wright is, I think, one of the best filmmakers around. He's just got such a specific vision, and this film very much stayed within his realms of making incredible films every time. I don't think this one is a surprise at all because this film has been critically acclaimed by so many people. I don't think I have heard a bad word about this film, and it is true because the way that Edgar Wright comes up with his films and is able to execute them in such an engaging way but also unique is brilliant. He has similar things like he's done in his other films where he'll have a song playing and what happens on screen times up perfectly with the music and the sound design. It's exciting. You cannot beat that kind of high-paced car chase crime themes that go on in this film. I'm sorry, I am not a film reviewer. Where are my words today? I don't know. The writing is clever, the acting fits perfectly, the score is amazing, but it also, I think, twists in a way that you wouldn't really expect of a film like this, and it provides a different perspective for this typical just kind of action genre film. And so I think that this is just a brilliant portrayal of what can arguably be said is a bit of an overdone theme. Alright, next one. Can talk about these all day. Next one is Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is probably something that had a very small release because it came out at the Toronto International Film Festival's Lightbox, which is basically, they show a lot of films that you wouldn't get elsewhere. Synopsis is: rural England, 1865. Catherine is stifled by her loveless marriage to a bitter man twice her age, whose family are cold and unforgiving. When she embarks on a passionate affair with a young worker on her husband's estate, a force is unleashed inside her, so powerful that she will stop at nothing to get what she wants. Ooh. I think that is very clear about what the film is about, why it's entitled Lady Macbeth. It's basically just a story of retribution and revenge, kind of. She just fights for what she wants and she ends up going to just despicable degrees to get there. It is the kind of film which is so much more slow paced, but I think there's a lot of suspense in every shot, and it really does make you want to watch more. It's certainly not a fast-paced action film, but it's beautifully shot. The landscapes in here are gorgeous. Clearly they shot on location. I don't necessarily know if they shot it in rural England, but it's a very small cast. There are so few characters involved, but the stances and the opinions of each of the characters throughout the film are very clear without even really needing to have much dialogue to explain that. And overall, it's just a fantastic story of a very strange form of female empowerment and just what some people are willing to do for love and to prove that they are not people to be walked over. Maybe empowerment isn't the right word, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but man, this actress, what's her name? Florence Pugh is an actress that I've never heard of before, but her portrayal of Catherine in this film is spot on. She is demure, she is classy, but she is terrifying, and I love it. Lady Macbeth, definitely check it out. I nearly missed this one off of my list, and I don't know how it wasn't showing up when I was searching up all the films from 2017, but The Big Sick. The Big Sick. Another one of these kind of comedy rom-coms that I was really not expecting to enjoy as much as I did. Pakistan-born comedian Kumail Nanjiani and grad student Emily Gardner fall in love, but struggle as their cultures clash. When Emily contracts a mysterious illness, Kumail finds himself forced to face her feisty parents, his family's expectations, and his true feelings. This was one of those comedies, rom-coms I guess, where I was really not expecting it to hit me as well as it did. And it's really funny. It reminds me a lot of The F Word. If you've seen The F Word, that was the one with Daniel Radcliffe and also Zoe Kazan, who is also the romantic lead in this film. Maybe that's why, but it's a surprising romantic story about love and loss and what it means to basically sacrifice parts of yourself to be with another person and recognizing what that entails. This film talks a lot about cultural differences, which I think is important because it is a growing theme in today's society. As there have been growing problems with growing tensions between different cultures, I think it's huge to recognize that these problems do happen and they can be overcome. I guess this film really impressed me because first and foremost, I mean, it's a great film, of course. It's well done, the writing is fantastic, it's very funny, it's also very heartwarming and very touching, but on the other side, it sheds light upon a situation that I think a lot of people are going through and have been going through for centuries even, that it shouldn't have as big of a deal tacked onto it that it does. And that is just the cultural differences thing. It's a huge problem that so many people have to face where they're split between, you know, following their families or their culture's traditions and doing something that will make them happy and, you know, being able to be with the person that they love strictly for the fact that those two people are in love. And how do you navigate a situation like that? There's a lot of complexities that are explored in this film, and what I think is really great about it is that it actually does follow the true story of Kumail Nanjiani and his wife's journey basically to being together, and I think it's really, really worth it, just even to get a different perspective and to get it fed to you in a very light and gentle way, I'd say. It explores a lot of these things without shoving certain ideas down your throat, and it's a very human story, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, The Big Sick, great film. Oh yes, we're here now. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. I'll let you think on what you think that's about before I read the synopsis. Oh gosh, there's a storyline, the long one or the shorter one? I'm gonna go with the vague version because I want you to watch it and I want you to just come back and tell me what you think of it if you haven't already seen it. Stephen, a charismatic surgeon, is forced to make an unthinkable sacrifice after his life starts to fall apart, when the behavior of a teenage boy he has taken under his wing turns sinister. I think that says enough. So this film is actually done by the director Yorgos Lanthimos. I feel like I'm butchering that, so if that's the case, sorry. Yorgos is actually a Greek director and writer. He's done a whole bunch of fantastic films that I've seen that you probably might not have. The films that I'm talking about are Dogtooth and The Alps, but you might have seen a little film called The Lobster that garnered a lot of attention last year during the Oscars. Now, it's fascinating because Yorgos's films are pretty fucked up. They are completely bizarre. They explore topics that are kind of taboo or that are really uncomfortable, and the way that he has his actors do them are so wooden? I don't know if I know how to really explain it, but his direction in these films are so specific so that the characters, when you're watching it, are kind of funny to watch because they're just so stiff and their delivery of the lines is very monotone, and it's just a very unique film style. Last year when The Lobster came out, I would have to say that was probably the least like his films that has existed. And yet The Lobster got all the attention. It was so much more accessible. The story was still bizarre, but it was something that can be eaten up a lot easier by the mainstream media. And then, of course, as happens, this comes out. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Killing of the Sacred Deer. And he's back to his old tricks, this little devil. And I was not even thinking about this when I went into the theater, about how the audience was gonna react to this. And that is a huge, huge part of his films. They are bizarre, and they question a lot of really fundamental questions of morality. He forces you to think about really, really tough questions, and he puts all of his characters in situations that are so morally ambiguous or morally just hard to deal with, and he asks them and forces you to watch. Holy fuck, that scared me. I'm not gonna say anything about it other than that the performances are, to the standards of his films, impeccable. All of the actors got his traditional acting direction style down. The writing is phenomenal and so uncomfortable, and the cinematography is beautiful. It's got this really bleak, kind of blue-toned color scheme that just, it feels so sterile, and it's like you're watching a dissection on the screen. It's just chilling. So this is a good one. And his films aren't scary, but they make you uncomfortable, and this film made me so tense. I know I was in the theater the entire time feeling like I had to cover my eyes the entire time, and I didn't. And now I know that I've seen it. But going in, I was on the edge of my seat, like gripping the side of the chair because I just didn't know what was gonna happen next. If you want that kind of visceral reaction, get up in here. Blade Runner 2049. If you haven't heard of this, where have you been? 30 years after the events of the first film, a new Blade Runner, LAPD Officer K, unearths a long-buried secret that has the potential to plunge what's left of society into chaos. K's discovery leads him on a quest to find Rick Deckard, a former LAPD Blade Runner who has been missing for 30 years. Now, if you haven't seen the original Blade Runner, I genuinely don't know whether or not you will understand this film. Blade Runner came out in the 80s, featured Harrison Ford. It was, I have actually no idea how it was received then, but right now people love it. The whole Blade Runner series is based off of a Philip K. Dick novel called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's post-apocalyptic, it has a lot of questions about morality around artificial intelligence and all that kind of stuff, and in general, I mean, I say read the book. Philip K. Dick is an incredible sci-fi writer. If you like sci-fi, he is one of the ones that you need to read. Otherwise, you are missing a huge and brilliant perspective on this world. And what's also brilliant about him is the fact that he is writing stuff that has yet come to pass, or that is very likely going to happen in the future. Anyways, so I'm not going to talk about the original Blade Runner, but this film, I think, as a sequel, as one that's come out 30 years later, is brilliant. It's so well executed, and because it feels like a sequel, but it also feels like its own film, I think it's the best way to do a sequel because you're given enough new information that I think if you went in having not seen the previous one, you would still very much be able to enjoy it just because of what's happening on screen, the nature of the storyline. You might be lost on some of the details, but for the most part, this film is a cinematic genius. This film is a genius. Sure, the special effects in here are incredible, so much to the point where, like, I don't know whether it is CGI. You can generally, I don't know. The aesthetic in this film, coupled with the special effects, the set design, the production design in general, is so well paired, not only to match with the first one, but to update, to make it seem like it's still new and futuristic. And they were able to touch on details in this one with the technology that they wouldn't have been able to in the older film because of the addition of CGI and that kind of stuff. So it makes it feel really visceral and really real in a way that's kind of anticipatorily melancholic, if that makes any sense. Probably not, I'm making up words, but it's just such a bleak but interesting look at what the future could be like, and it asks questions about, I think, a lot of current day problems that are going on, but in a different perspective that can also be translated towards questions we're gonna have to ask in the future. And because of that, this is, I think, one sci-fi film that everyone should see because it has real world applications, current day applications, and future applications. Plus, if you like Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, you got them both in one. Yay! There's no way you haven't heard about this one. And if you haven't, you really need to. Lady Bird. Christine Lady Bird McPherson is a high school senior from the wrong side of the tracks. She longs for adventure, sophistication, and opportunity, but finds none of that in her Sacramento Catholic high school. Lady Bird follows the title character's senior year in high school, including her first romance, her participation in the school play, and most importantly, her applying for college. So, okay, first off, I just have to talk about Saoirse Ronan because I think she's one of my favorite actresses. She does such an incredible job, not only because she's an Irish actress playing an American teenager, but, you know, it's every dissected facet of that. Her American accent is spot on. Her portrayal of a teenager is just, it's like looking in a mirror, or it's like, you know, the attitudes that she has, the ways that she's able to execute them, despite what she might have learned since being that age. It's all so well done, so kudos to her. Bravo, bravo. Ultimately though, the story is such, I think, an important one to watch. Lady Bird is a killer female character. Can't have enough of those, and there's so many more coming out, and I'm so glad about that. But her relationship with her mum is so true to life. When we came out of the film, Dan asked me what I thought of it and whether or not that was very true, and I said, you know what, I think it is. And although not a lot of the details specifically that have happened in this film are things that me and my mom have experienced together, I think the general kind of ebb and flow, the constant battle between the relationship of the mother-daughter is very true. And I guess it really depends on you, if you're a girl, what your relationship is like with your mom. Some people have very great relationships, some don't. Some have relationships like these two in this film where they're kind of constantly battling. They're in the middle of this flux between, you know, expectation and individuality and this desire for freedom and for the ability to just be who she wants to be, Lady Bird as a character, and how these changing relationships being in flux can impact everything else, and how a lack of control in one can make her feel like she needs to get control in something else. I just think this is a fantastic coming of age story. It will explain a lot about youth and a lot about growing up, and it is a very real story. I think if you want to see a film that portrays something genuinely, this is a great way to go. It portrays the life of a teenager in the States. I know I'm from Canada, but the life of a teenager fighting with her mom and struggling with her relationships, and it does it very well. So this film is one that I'm going to be remembering for a very long time. Second last, we have 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Oh my god, is this film fantastic. After months have passed without a culprit in her daughter's murder case, Mildred Hayes makes a bold move, painting 3 signs leading into her town with a controversial message directed at William Willoughby, the town's revered chief of police. When his second-in-command, Officer Dixon, an immature mother's boy with a penchant for violence, gets involved, the battle between Mildred and Ebbing's law enforcement is only exacerbated. That is a great description of this film. It tells you what's happening without telling you what happened. So this is a Frances McDormand film. If you don't know of Frances McDormand, maybe you've heard of Fargo, which was her Oscar award-winning film. She won for Best Actress during the Academy Awards when Fargo had come out, and she herself is a powerhouse actress. In many ways, this role is kind of similar, just in that she's an unconventional female lead who just doesn't take shit from no one. She just, to get down to brass tacks, I feel like there's a theme in a lot of these films that I'm saying. It's just another great story of problems that happen on a regular basis. The lack of attention to something, a very serious problem just being swept under the rug, and the frustration that comes with that. Frances McDormand's character is basically mourning the death of her daughter who's been murdered, and nothing's being done about it by her police enforcement in her town, and she's fed up. So what does she do? She fights back in the only way that she knows how. And although she has relationships with the people that she's fighting against, she recognizes that they're also going through shit. She also tries to draw their attention to the fact that just because they're going through shit doesn't mean that they can just let things happen. And it's just a beautiful portrayal of this poor woman's loss. You don't see many middle-aged leading roles. And I think that's what is great about this film as well, is that Frances McDormand is the best person to portray that kind of character. This just powerful woman who's someone to look up to, who sends a message, and yet also tells a lot about life and the mistakes that people can make, but also ways to deal with it, and being able to account for the mistakes when you've made them. Check it out. And finally, the last film I saw this year, very, very different subject. This is actually a documentary called Human Flow. Human Flow is director and artist Ai Weiwei's detailed and heartbreaking exploration into the global refugee crisis. Ai Weiwei is a Chinese artist and activist and director. I've seen another film of his a couple years ago, and you might have heard of this guy. He actually was one of the leading artists on creating The Nest, which was in the Chinese Olympics a number of years ago, where they had the main... Anyway, Ai Weiwei has experienced a lot. He's actually been banned from China. He has gotten into a lot of trouble with the police, which is what his other documentary, So Sorry, is about. But basically, this man is a fantastic mouthpiece for the underprivileged and the down and out. As the synopsis says, this is exploring the global refugee crisis, and what I think he does is he just shows you what these people are going through in a way that documentarians don't always do. The one thing that I noticed very particularly about the way that he shoots interviews, for example, with subjects, is that he just, maybe when he's interviewing them, they ask the subject a question, and they just like sit there and wait for a while. They leave the camera running, and you just see the person as a human, and not just hear their response and see their response as they're responding to the question that they're being asked. It adds a level of humanity and of depth to his documentary that I haven't seen before, and it really sinks in the message further than it would otherwise. You know, you see a lot of documentaries like Blackfish, and those are done incredibly well, and I love Blackfish as a film. But I think the way that Ai Weiwei does this, he has a very neutral lens, and he shows the humanity of the people that are going through these really shitty times. There's so many people who are displaced, who are not able to go back to where they live, who have left where they live because of war, of famine, of serious problems. And he not only documents what it means to make the decision to leave and to seek asylum, but what happens sometimes when you're stuck. He goes to talk about, you know, the refugees that are stuck in Greece as they're trying to make their way through to other countries, and just the borders are closed and no one is paying attention to them. And he draws your eye towards the very uncomfortable situations that these people are going through, but the very important reality that we, as privileged individuals, are able to fight for those who can't, because at this point they're not even citizens of any land. If they've left, they've left. They're seeking asylum, and it's a very shitty place to be, but a very beautiful portrayal of what it means, and not just in one area in the world, but all over the world, and from different perspectives. And oh, this film. It's beautiful, it's sad, but it is worth watching. So there you have it, all of my top 10 films from 2017. As I mentioned, I didn't rank it or anything like that, but as I was kind of going through it, I realized that there's kind of a bit of a theme to the films that I've been drawn to. All of them tend to have some kind of component of righting injustices or being able to empower those who are otherwise voiceless, recognizing when you're able to take a stand and being able to expand your perspective on the realities of the world around us. We're very fortunate, I say we because you are clearly able to watch this video on some kind of platform, however that is. We are privileged to have access to that kind of thing. There are many people in the world who don't. There are many people in the world who don't seek out videos online of people to learn different perspectives and to, you know, expand their lexicon of what it is to be human. Just by watching me now, you are interested in the opinion of someone that you've never met before, who is maybe across the world, and I think that film is an incredible way of exploring a lot of the themes that exist, at least that I'm talking about. But I think it's really important when we're watching films to not just use it as an escape, because it's so easy to do that. It's so easy to find a film like, I don't know, like the Thor movies, the Justice League, Wonder Woman, Star Wars, and just watch them at face value rather than thinking of them deeper and paying attention to the underlying story arc that is going on. All films have a story arc, and the reason for that is there is a point of conflict in there somewhere, and that point of conflict is something to pay attention to. It says a lot about the world that we live in, and if there's a theme in the films that are coming out, I think that is worth paying attention to, and not only worth paying attention to, but learning about. The films that I saw this year that I'm telling you about are all great watches. I encourage you to go and try and find them wherever you can. I don't know whether some of them will be on Netflix, whether maybe you'll have to rent them, buy them, download them, but I would say this is a great start to good films that also have another positive takeaway from them in some way or another, whether that be if you're a budding film enthusiast, a film creator, or if you just want to learn about what it is to be human. This is, I think, a pretty decent list to start from this year alone. Aside from that, there are, like I mentioned, a lot of films that I haven't seen this year. Again, I'll put the list of the ones that I did see this year, but I want to know what you thought of films this year. Obviously, there are films like Dunkirk, like Mother, like Thelma, I, Tonya, The Space Between Us. Those kind of films are all on my I must watch list, but I'd like to know what you think as well. Give me some recommendations. I love movies. Tell me what you liked. Tell me why you liked them. Tell me of things that you think will be fun, and maybe of ones that you found really, really hit you in ways you weren't expecting. I love visceral reactions to film. It's just, that's why I want to be an actor. So let me know what you think. Let me know your suggestions. And let me know if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. I see a lot of movies, I don't ever talk about them because I don't feel like I'm a film reviewer, and I'm not. But, if this is interesting to you, it might be interesting to someone else. So, thank you again for joining me. I'll see you next time, and yeah, have a good time. Bye.